NCAA tournament kicks off today, assuming this is when you're listening to it. We're recording it the night before. Carolina is a 1 seed, get a 16 seed coming in to Charlotte, North Carolina, and Wagner. I'm Riley Davis. I am joined by my co-host, Jacob Karabatsos, and this is the Pod as the Roof. We're going to be talking all things NCAA tournament, and we also have a very special guest. You may have seen him on Twitter, known as Crazie Talker. Yes, he is a Duke fan, a Duke alum, current UNC law student, which we're going to get into. His name is Jake Stanley. He was recommended to us by a friend of the program, Neil Pierre Louis. And this pod is going to be a little bit different because, well, for one, we are going to get some grudging praise from a Duke fan toward UNC and their basketball team. That was promised, the text agreement. But yeah, we're not just going to talk about UNC's tournament draw. We're also going to talk about Duke as well. Maybe have some rivalry talk too. We'll just see where it goes. But Jake, how are you doing, man? Welcome to the show.
I'm good, guys. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm here to repent for the sins of all Duke fans. By we've had a lot of bad looks this year. So excited to be here and sort of seek forgiveness and also praise your team, which so clearly owns my team this year. Yeah.
We appreciate you admitting that. It's you're very much being the bigger man in that. And listen, there are plenty of crazy Carolina fans on there. Sometimes, it's shocking. Twitter can be a toxic space where people just pop off behind a veil of and then being anonymous. I can't say that word. We discussed this pre-recording and anonymity. There we go. But yeah, so anyway, let's start a little bit with just hearing some of your story, Jake. I want to tell the people like how you ended up at UNC Law School, what you're even give you can give us some insight on your Duke fandom growing up, and maybe we can like hypnotize you enough to say like maybe Carol there's a little bit of Carolina fandom that's starting to blossom after spending grad school there. I don't know.
Yeah, I to be clear, it's like I love UNC as an institution. It's just I truly hate the basketball team. It's not even like it's football. I'm wearing my Duke football. One of my jokes is like basketball season is over. Moving on to football. But yeah, I love UNC, and it's just this visceral, like deep-seated loathing of the basketball team, but also a lot of respect. And yeah, I've been thinking like this is like sacrilege to Duke fans, but like I love the campus, and it might be like it's so beautiful, but like in a different way than
Mhm.
Duke, which is kind of can be kind of imposing, and like the castle like Hogwarts look. So um, yeah. What else? Yeah, I grew up in Asheville. Grew up a Duke fan, and a lot of Duke people in my family. A lot of Methodist ministers, and yeah, got lucky enough to go to Duke. And graduated in 2012, and the Twitter account, I started a blog with several of my friends. Everything I say is just representative of me, not of anything. They're off like being doctors and scientists and stuff now. So I'm the only one who's still like on Twitter. But yeah, we started this blog, got to, cover the team pretty closely. Got to go to the Final Four and national championship in 2010, which was a good year. But also saw that 2009 Hansbrough-led UNC team kick our ass. I was there on the front row, did tenting in Kville, all of that, and so I saw all the highs and lows. I mean, I saw Tyler Hansbrough just like absolutely wreck us right in front of my face, and then I saw Harrison Barnes commit to UNC, and I'm like, it's all over. So, but then
Hey,
we got one back. Yeah.
we're even because my senior year was 2015. I've told the story on the pod
Mm.
before, but watching Tyus Jones just like knock down clutch three after clutch three in the Dean Dome ripped my heart out. And I ripped my shirt. I tore my shirt in frustration. I had to walk all the way back to I lived on West Cameron Avenue and had to walk all the way back up there with a shirt ripped down the middle essentially. But I'm gonna say a little bit. I'll speak some on the Crazy Talker Twitter account because just in case any of our listeners are mad at us for having a Duke fan, Crazy Talker shares some good takes. He's balanced about his team, and that's something that Jacob and I have tried to do and curate for our own coverage throughout this whole season is we're going to tell you when we're really excited about Carolina, but we've also been honest when they have been suboptimal. Like if you go back to the episode where RJ Davis put up 42 against Miami, both of us were just in terrible moods right after watching UNC like nearly squander a lead to a depleted Miami team on a night that should have been about celebration. So that's why with Jake, he's someone who we respect as far as how he covers his team through an objective lens. And of course, he has some, typical trash talking from a fan. But I will say he is pretty creative with his trash talking of UNC, and that's something I advocate on for both sides. Part of what makes this rivalry great is the history between two programs, but I'd like to think both fan bases have just some elite insults that they can throw at each other. So keep being creative. But let's transition a little bit. This is the first time that Jacob and I have even talked since Carolina lost in the ACC tournament finals. JK, I'm gonna throw it to you. What did you see from Carolina in those 3 days in the ACC tournament? Maybe something that gives you encouragement heading into the big dance, and something that gives you a little bit of pause.
Well, the first thing is like to not think too much into it. NC State, I mean, we see at least two teams do this in a power conference tournament just about every year. They just get hot. I mean, that's kind of what like NC State, DJ Burns is playing the best basketball I've ever seen him play in my life. Like he was incredible. The playmaking was incredible. His footwork and how soft his hands are at that size is genuinely remarkable. Like it is insane. Also, there's a lot of other factors. Like I think you do get to a point sometimes where NC State not only is playing for their tournament life, but they're also kind of playing to save their head coach's job. And now,
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I'm not going to complain as a UNC fan, but Keats is going to be there for at least 2 more years. So they can have fun with that. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like you just ran into a hot team. They outplayed you. This doesn't concern me going into the tournament at all because they made the conference championship. They could have easily laid an absolute stinker against Pitt or something like that. Wouldn't have been good. And listen, every champion since like 1986 or 1985, it's not a requirement that you win your conference tournament. It's just a requirement that you make at least the semifinals of your conference tournament. So I don't really feel any type of way. Like hate NC State, but big ups to them. They just outplayed us. They just outplayed everyone they matched up with in the tournament. Um, Now they go in as an 11. But yeah, I mean, I'm not. If it would have been something that took us off to one line or something like that, it'd be a little different. But thankfully, Tennessee did us a lot of favors down the stretch here.
Yes, thank you. Is Rick Barnes is he kicked his March off. He kicked his March collapse off a week and a half early. Although I say that in jest. We'll get to this later on in the show, but I actually have Tennessee as a Final Four team. I think that I think it's a blip more than a huge concern. But Jake, I'm gonna turn it over to you. What did you see from Carolina this past week? Really, in any of the games, don't feel like you got to limit to the NC State game, but if you have any like somewhat objective third party views on that, we want to hear those as well.
Yeah, I mean, going back to the game at Cameron, that felt. I was on my bachelor weekend in Boone.
Oh,
With like,
congrats. We didn't know you're
thank
engaged.
you.
That's awesome, man.
Oh yeah. Shout out to my fiance. She's in the other room with the dog, but yeah, that was really tough. For me, what I saw from UNC. It's also tough because there were no other Duke fans at my bachelor weekend. Don't know how I let that happen, but uh, yeah, look, I mean, like, one of the big things I was wondering about with UNC was like, how do you handle all of the like the turnover and the players? That was I was a bit overconfident coming into this year for Duke. I mean, I was like, oh, I might never lose when I'm in law school. Like, absolute ridiculous claim now, but yeah, I just RJ is just unbelievable. Like the leap that he made since last year, being freed up with Caleb
Mhm.
being gone, and like all the complementary players and guys who accept their roles. So I've loved the basketball from UNC from like a neutral fan perspective. And I think Riley, you and I were talking. I love Harrison Ingram just as a player so much. I don't really like Cormac Ryan. I'm not, I'm not fond of him, but he can absolutely. I'm excited for his downfall if that is to come. In fact, but more than really anyone else. But he absolutely owned us. So I feel like Cameron is a shooter's gem. People tend to have really crazy good shooting
Hmm.
nights there, and he's already a great shooter. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so I think I'm curious what you guys think about this, like the third scorer thing, and that's sort of what seemed to fall apart a little bit against State. But I also
Yeah.
think that State, I was cheering for State, of course, and I think it's a great story, and I don't really care that we lost to them because Duke lost to them because we played terribly. But yeah, I was curious about kind of what broke down there because it seemed like it was RJ and Baycott and not much
Right.
else.
Yeah, I think it's what's unfortunate is I'm not going to say I was necessarily concerned about the NC State game. I was pretty frustrated about it. It also overshadowed how well Carolina played that first day when they I think ended up beating Florida State by 27, 25, somewhere in that range. Where, to me, I think Florida State declined an NIT invitation. And I feel like watching them in December in the Dean I was like, this team has NIT written all over it. They're like a good guard away from being able to sneak into the dance. But still, they did what you wanted to see a potential one seed do to a team that's, not really on the bubble. Honestly, not at all on the bubble, but a team that still has some talent enough to make the NIT, but like, that's kind of it. They completely handled him. Didn't really leave any doubt after the game's first 9 minutes. And then the second round against Pitt, they started off a little bit slow. I thought the defense seemed a little disconnected, particularly how Pitt was able to spread them out as soon as they put Guillermo Diaz-Graham in there, something that our guy Russell Hainline, aka Duke Better, has referred to as Chet Homeless. Um, Chet Homeless was getting buckets early when they had him at the 5. Pitt was able to spread UNC out, which gave them some issues. But I thought, the second half highlighted what we've seen from this Carolina team dating back to Oklahoma game was when it started. They lock in defensively, they're physical and they're tough, and they can win a game, even if it gets a little gritty, even if they got to get it out the mud and win a game where you score high 60s, low 70s. So it's a bummer that both of those efforts got overshadowed because, like, I don't know. I think the ACC was really, really bad this year after like the top, it's definitely the top two. I'll give Clemson in there as they have some talent. Uh, I thought Pitt was like I think Pitt's a better basketball team than NC State. I think they're definitely better than Virginia. I thought like they're top 40 in a bunch of the predictive metrics, and I know like it's really fun to make fun of Pitt, so it hurts a little bit to acknowledge that they're a good team, but I think they would have been pretty fun to see in the big dance because you have Blake Henson, you have Guillermo Diaz-Graham who can hit threes as a 5, and you have like Bub and Jalen Lowe who were fun freshman guards. But when it came to that NC State game, it just seemed like the execution completely fell apart, especially late second half where NC State built either a 6 or an 8-point lead. And what I noticed was Carolina sort of reverting back to old habits. I said this on the Sleepers media recap with Carter Elliott, but they played basketball like they did last year. A lot of ISO, a lot of stagnation. Guys weren't moving. And I thought Hubert ran some really great sets and actions those first couple of games and against Duke as well and Cameron, to where that left me scratching my head a little bit because I do think they wanted that trophy. They wanted a chance to cut the nets, and I'm sure they wanted to blast their rival and keep him out of the tournament, especially with Roy Williams in the crowd. So I'm hoping it's just one off where, as a fan, you talk yourself into it where it's like it's easier to win 6 games in a row than to win. I believe it would have been 15 because that would have been Carolina's 9th win in a row, and you got to get 6 more. That's how it's like, okay, get the loss out of the way now. But yeah, it is still, I'd say it's like slightly concerning, but not the worst thing that could happen.
Yeah, I think the biggest concern for me was there was just a lot of times in that game, which it's so funny to say this because Harrison did it against Duke at the Dean Dome. Cormac did it against Duke at Cameron. But like there was a lot of moments in this game where the moment looked a little big for both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And that was concerning for me because we're literally about to be on the biggest stage of moments you can possibly be on. I genuinely I am a firm believer in the whole third scorer thing. I know Jake brought it up earlier. I mean, it's just really this simple. RJ and Armando are gonna be fine in the tournament. They are. They've been there. They've been to a national championship game. They're fine. It's literally gonna come down to every game, one of either Cadeau, Cormac, or Ingram has to be good. Now, Ingram can get away with it a little more because he's so good at other things, because he's
Yeah.
such a good rebounder, because he's such an elite defender. You look at the rest, though, I mean, Cormac, he tries really, really hard on defense. But if Cormac's not hitting shots, I mean, it gets tough
Mm.
because then you got to start looking at, would we rather have Seth Trimble out there, who's an elite defender and is going to attack the basket and slash? And then it's like with Cadeau, I don't think he has to score a ton, but he's just got to. I would say if Cadeau can keep like a 3 or 4 assist to turnover ratio in the tournament, we'll be fine. He looked very freshman-y in that NC State
Yes, he
game.
did.
He did, straight up.
He missed a lot of shots at the basket. Still finished with 8 assists, which is great. But he's 2 for 8 from the field. He's now missed his last 7 3-point attempts. Like, if he could, I just need him to make 30% of those open threes he gets off of kickouts, and just to open up the offense a little bit more. And, you give him a pass because, again, he's a reclass freshman. Those guards tend to struggle, but this would be the worst time for him to hit a freshman wall, because he was, playing pretty well down the stretch. He had 15 and 7 against NC State in the Dean Dome. He's had moments like he wasn't asked to do much against Notre Dame, played really well against Florida State in the first round, was honestly brilliant on both ends of the floor. That was maybe the best defensive game he's played all year. So you got to keep him confident. But he had a couple looks at the rim that he's finished them for most of the year. Didn't go down. Yeah, like you said with Cormac, I will say, I don't know if either of y'all noticed this, but there are multiple possessions where Cormac was open in the corner. He got looked off once by RJ when Casey Morcell was on him, and he went ISO and almost lost the ball. And I think he kind of took it personally, where he's like, "Oh, I gotta expose this dude." Took a contested 3, missed it. Ingram, I think, forced up a bad shot, maybe even on the next possession with Cormac open in the corner. Then late in game, Armando was triple teamed in the post with Cormac right behind him in the corner, and he didn't give up the ball. And so I think Cormac finished either 1 for 7 or 1 for 8 from 3 that game. At the same time, I'm like, he had open looks, or if guys had gotten him involved earlier, maybe he would have gotten to a better rhythm and wouldn't have been clanking him in the front, in the clutch, basically.
Yeah, I mean, the Duke game is the perfect example. The reason he played so well against Duke is because he started the game off with 3 wide open looks.
Mm-hmm.
And another shout out to the guy Duke Better. He said it best. Like, if you allow a shooter to see a basket the size of an ocean on their first 3 shots, whatever coverage you throw at them the rest of the game doesn't matter. And I think that's what, we're going to know how good Cormac's going to be in a game within the first 5 minutes. I mean, that's just how I see it.
Yeah, generally speaking. Sometimes he might get hot late, but I think that's a fair point. That's a great transition to get into the bracket and to see. We'll talk about Carolina first, talk about their draw. I'm going to turn it over to Jake. When you look at UNC's region in the West, who do you think is their biggest threat? Like, if they or which matchup looms largest? I mean, Arizona's maybe the obvious one, but if there's anyone, we can talk some about that matchup too. But if there's anyone you see before Arizona or even after Arizona, I guess after Arizona would be in the Final Four. But would love to hear your thoughts.
I mean, yeah, so hopefully Rabin Wagner takes them down, but if yeah, Michigan State, we play Michigan State. That I don't think you'll have a problem with them, other than Tyson Walker's really good. So he could get hot, and Izzo's really good in March, but probably not a big threat. I haven't watched much Mississippi State. So I don't know about them. So I'm assuming y'all get past out of the first weekend. St. Mary's, they're so disciplined and old, and I think their rebounding and defensive efficiency is really insane from what I've seen. I'm not worried about Alabama. Not worried about Clemson. I think Baylor is pretty maybe the biggest threat, other than Arizona, who I also don't trust. So I feel like it's too perfect for UNC and Arizona to play in the Elite Eight, so it won't happen. And
I know that's what everybody's saying. I'm not gonna say I want it to happen, but it would low key be scenes.
What would you guys even do? I don't. How would you process that?
Oh
Jacob?
man, that would be. I
What if he did?
literally.
What if he did to you what he did to me?
That's true. It could happen. However, see, that's what would be the beauty of that game. It would be so painstaking to watch as a fan. However, the thing about Caleb Love is that we know the ins and outs of his game. And I can guarantee you that game has two results. Caleb Love is either going to shoot 25 shots, make 18 of them, and beat us, or he is going to shoot 25 shots, make 6 of them, and we will destroy them. But I can guarantee you Caleb Love is chucking against UNC. Like there is no doubt. And I mean, I don't know. The on the flip side of it, I think RJ would take that shit personally. I'm not gonna lie. I think RJ would go for like 30. Because I think he'd have a little bit of like, all right, you were the quote unquote hero when we went to the championship, but like I'm the first team All-American, I'm the ACC player of the year. Let me show you what's up. It would like that would just be a cinematic basketball game.
If we could get, I just want like, okay, Jake, actually, both of y'all probably remember this. Caleb Love, his freshman year, the COVID season, 2020, 2021, empty stands in Cameron. Remember there was that photo of Jeremy Roach guarding him around midcourt, and he, of course, caused controversy when he posted it with the caption, "Everybody is savage until you look one in the face," something like
Oh,
that.
like it was yesterday. Yeah,
Great.
the savages back and forth with him and
Yes,
Theo
this
John. It's like,
is so great.
oh my god.
I would love a photo like that of Caleb Love guarding RJ with, the Final Four logo, or excuse me, I guess that would just be the March Madness logo center court. And if Carolina won that game, that photo would be in every barbershop in Chapel Hill. Like there's so many chances for that to be iconic on so many different levels. And yeah, I think there would definitely be some fear in the back of my mind that like Caleb is going to go for 30 plus. I honestly think 25 shot attempts might be on the lower side, Jacob. I wouldn't be surprised. Remember Kobe's last game? When there were jokes that's like, oh, Kobe's going to shoot 60 tonight.
And
And
he
then
did.
he really took 60 shot attempts. Like we might get that type of performance from Caleb Love against Carolina. And there's a decent chance that he gets hot and would win that game.
What are the
Yeah, I know.
chances that we also get like we've kind of seen Caleb Love mature and evolve into a little bit of a different player this year. Like, what if we get that Caleb, and what if it's like he stays within himself, and we're expecting him to not stay within himself. So now you've got like Omar Ballo going for like 25,
Mhm.
or like I don't know, man. There's so many different ways that it could go because the other thing is Arizona's got a lot more than Caleb Love. Like they're
Yeah.
just good. But then, I mean, everyone loves to give Purdue shit. I mean, when are we going to start giving Arizona some shit? Those dudes choke in the tournament every year.
Yeah, I mean, they lost did they make it to the Sweet 16 in Lloyd's first year? I think they squeaked by TCU and then lost in the Sweet 16. And then obviously lost in the first round last year. Yeah, this Arizona team has been erratic, Jake. I know you said you didn't trust them. I think they need Caleb to not necessarily play within himself to beat UNC because Kashad Johnson's one of my favorite players in the country. I think that dude is an absolute animal on defense, and he very much like Harrison Ingram does to UNC. He just brings out that edge from the rest of the team and brings out like that psychotic energy. But he's not really like a big scorer. Kylan Boswell has had his ups and
Yeah.
downs throughout the year. Like Pella Larson is one of the best glue guys in the country, but he's still a glue guy. Like they need, I honestly think they would need Caleb to get at least 20 points to get past UNC.
Yeah, and if Duke played Arizona at the second game of the year this
Mm-hmm.
year, and so it's very obviously different, very different Arizona team and very different Duke team at the time. But what they kind of exposed our the theme of our problems this year is like the lack of the five. But Ballo and then Krivos, the like Lithuanian
Krivas
guy,
was
like
great that game.
it was nasty. But yeah, I was so impressed with Boswell. Just seemed like so ready and so solid
Mm-hmm.
and tough. But I haven't watched much of them because they're on Pac-12 Network, and I can't. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't. But yeah, it just seems like I've seen like jokes on Twitter about like, oh, Arizona's down like Caleb Love's about to start chucking, game over. Like, and I wonder like how if he's like, because he's their leading scorer and All American or All Pac-12 or whatever, and
Mhm.
like, do they need him? Like, would he when he sees RJ, like, what's he gonna when he sees Coach Davis, like his emotional volatility seems, with all due respect, I honestly really like love and respect him in a weird way.
Mhm.
But I feel like RJ is so much steadier that I would trust
Mhm.
RJ to like lock in and like win that game.
Yeah,
I
Yeah,
don't know.
I feel you
I
on
think
that.
RJ is just kind of, I don't know. I do think Caleb is a dog in his own right, but I think RJ's just got what every single undersized guard from New York has. Like they just have that mental wherewithal, that fortitude.
Mhm.
Now, to get off the Arizona topic, I have a bit of a it's really weird because I think this team either loses in the first round or they get back to playing the basketball they played the first 3 months of the season. And if Dayton gets back to playing Dayton basketball, it's going to be interesting. Just simply because of how good Daron Holmes is. Um, Kobe Elvis and Enoch Cheeks are like wildly inconsistent. And I see the look on your face, Riley, because they played so bad over the last month. But I'm just saying, like, if they lock in, beat Nevada, that's a tough matchup for Arizona in round two. Simply because Daron Holmes can be the best player on the floor in like 99% of matchups.
When you're a kid and you get scared of the dark and you need your parents to come in and comfort you in some capacity? I am so unafraid of Dayton that I would call Dayton in to come comfort me and turn on the nightlight when I get scared of the dark.
I'm unafraid of the current version of Dayton. I'm simply saying if they get back to like what they were the first 3.5, 4 months of the season, then it's like they've been terrible down the stretch. There's no denying it. But I don't know, man. I think it's literally just because I love Daron Holmes. Like that man,
Daron Holmes is sick.
he is a bucket.
I mean, he can do everything on the court. I was actually did a draft, a little draft watchability guide for Heat Check CBB. I'll plug that. Please read it. And I sort of did as part one. I did a profile of the best NBA prospects to watch in the NCAA tournament. And for part one, I just covered guys who should go top 5, top 10, guys who should go lottery, and a couple guys who could sneak into the lottery. Most mock drafts have Daron Holmes anywhere from pick 27 to I think 33 was the lowest that I saw. I feel like he's got a chance. I will say, as much as I'm like throwing shade at Dayton right now, if they do get hot, if they knock off Nevada and at least scare Arizona, maybe even win that game, I think Holmes has a chance to sneak into the back half of the lottery. Like, um, Jake, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think he's got a lot of the same offensive skill set as Kyle Filipowski. Like they can both attack off of spot ups. I mean, Holmes has only attempted 78 threes this year, made 30 of them, 38.5%. Like he can hit an outside shot, and he's averaging a career high in assist rate. I think they can use him as like a playmaking hub, which when Duke's offense has looked the best, in my personal opinion,
Yeah.
it's been when they've had guys running off of screens that Flip is finding and getting them involved. Um,
Mhm.
but I think Holmes has a lot less questions on the defensive end. And I thought last year, Flip's freshman year, he looked really good defensively next to Lively. I remember even both Carolina games that UNC tried putting Flip in ball screens repeatedly, and it just didn't work because he's mobile. I know this year there's been some cracks when he's had to defend fives, and I think with Flip's fit at the next level, it's going to be really interesting to see what organization he lands with. Do they play him more at the 4? Do they play him more at the 5? Will they have like a rim protector next to him if he plays the 4? But I know Flip is pretty much a consensus lottery pick, and just looking at him and Holmes, I don't think there's that much separation with him other than the fact that like Holmes plays in a worse league. But yeah, what's your take on that, Jake? I know Duke fans had a vested interest in Holmes this past offseason too, when
Yeah,
they tried to will
that's
him
right.
into the portal. But
Duke legend Daron Holmes. That's right. We got all the Duke legends. Ernest Uday. Yeah,
Aziz
we
Bandago.
wish. Oh yeah, any of these elusive fives that we don't have. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't watched much Holmes, but like
Mhm.
since like the off season, honestly. But yeah, I mean Flip. Yeah. What's the question? Flip. I
Oh,
mean,
just I don't know what you think about like their games compared to one another. Just because like
yeah.
when I watched them, I had a realization watching Dayton probably a month or two ago. Like, dang, if this dude had really landed at Duke, that would be unfair to have
Oh,
two
it'd
bigs
be
who are
over.
both who are this good on the
Yeah.
perimeter and that good in the post as well. But
Yeah. I mean, I think yeah, like Flip has been totally, yeah, like we just asked him to do too much. And you're right that
Mhm.
like I think on the next level, being a four with a rim protector five gives him more flexibility. And he's like, I feel like he's just worn down by having to play the five. So
Mhm.
he hasn't looked as like tough, resilient, happy, like he's having fun. Just I think he's being asked to do too much. So
Mhm.
yeah, but he's got some real skills for sure.
The best month of the year is here, which is why you need to know that we are now partnered with BetMGM. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 all through the NCAA tournament. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use the bonus code FIELD, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM, regardless of whether or not that bet hits. Here's the best part. All you need to do is deposit and bet $10 of your hard-earned money. This is how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you get up to $1,500 in bonus bets, regardless of the outcome of your bet. Just make sure you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. Most importantly, we do have some fun stuff coming for the conference tournaments and especially for the NCAA tournament. Bet insurance tokens, college hoops odds boosts, and what I love the most, a nice parlay boost for anything you could possibly imagine betting on in the NCAA tournament, from odds and getting an at-large bid to Final Four futures to the highest seed to make to the Sweet 16. I'm calling it right now. BetMGM is the king of the prop bet for your March Madness needs. So go download the BetMGM app, use the code FIELD, and sign up today. And while I've got you, a quick request: the best way to support the Field of 68 and our content you get for free is to engage with us. Rate and review the pod, like and share the YouTube videos, tell your friends about us. It helps in a world where the algorithm is king. And now, back to the show.
Yeah, now that you mention it, there has not really been many times where I've watched Flip and I'm like, oh, he has joy right now. Like I think back to last year, I believe it was the Crazy Talker Twitter pick for a while of Mark Mitchell smiling and waving goodbye to the Dean Dome. Thankfully we got vengeance for that this year, but yeah, like there hasn't really been, at least I mean, I think Jared McCain plays with a lot of joy. He's, I think, by far the scariest player on Duke. We'll get into y'all's bracket in a little bit, but yeah,
Mhm.
as a whole, I think you might be onto something with him getting worn down. But two more teams I want to talk about in UNC's bracket. Y'all both highlighted them. Well, I actually do feel like we might need to talk about Michigan State. And then the two offensive minded teams in Baylor and Alabama. So I'll start the dialogue on Michigan State. There's part of me that is just like having to game prep for a Tom Izzo team in a day, if that's the matchup that shakes out for UNC, is a little bit scary. At the same time, I don't want to lose sight of the fact that Michigan State has lost 14 games already, and they can't shoot. They're good defensively. I think the combination of Tyson Walker, AJ Hogard, they can get up in RJ's grill a little bit and make him work for it. But as a whole, again, UNC has won games in the low 60s this year. They've held teams under 60. And if it turns into that type of battle, I just trust UNC a lot more. But how would y'all see a potential matchup like that shaking out?
I mean, look, I understand that historically UNC gets cooked by good guards, and it just happened against DJ Horn. And I understand that Mississippi State has Hubbard and that Michigan State has Walker. Cool, fine, whatever. But we got to stop this, man. Michigan State is a bad basketball team who would not be in the tournament if their head coach's last name was not Izzo. They are bad. This is a team that literally two of their best players, Xavier Booker and Cohen Carr, like don't even get on the court. And then all Tom Izzo says is we're going to get him more minutes. And then they proceed to not get more minutes. This team is just not good. Like like I understand fearing the name Tom Izzo, but it's just when you look at it, if the name Tom Izzo wasn't attached to the program, they wouldn't even be here. So I mean, I just think it's ridiculous. I am so much more scared of Mississippi State than I am Michigan State, without question.
Just because of the physicality, or
The physicality, and Hubbard could get hot and drop 30.
I do have some Mississippi State stats that will make you feel better about that if you want
Oh,
to feel like
God.
me too, Jacob. Before the SEC tournament, do you know how many games they lost in a row?
Probably like 7.
Close, 4. And they lost. Okay, it's actually, they won 5 games in a row before that, but still, 4-game losing streak going in, all against tournament teams. Their previous 5 wins before that, Georgia, who was either in the NIT or rejected a bid, Missouri, who didn't win an SEC game, Arkansas, who was a mess. They beat Duke and Bud Walton Arena and decided their season was over. Ole Miss, who won like maybe 20 games, but they played basically JV teams around the country. LSU, who another bad team, got packed up by Kentucky, gave up 1.25 points per possession, got packed up by Auburn, gave up 1.2 points per possession, got packed up at Texas A&M, gave up 1.19 points per possession to a terrible offense that can't shoot, and then lost to South Carolina in overtime. At home, though, gave up 1.3 points per possession. Like the narrative that this is some physical, tough defense, they've had their moments. And I'm not going to, I don't want this to be a freezing cold take because Josh Hubbard is pretty scary. But as a whole, if this Carolina team has earned the 1 seed, which I think they have, they shouldn't really be scared of either of these teams.
Well, that's what I'm not understanding. And listen, me and you are both biased, so I'll go to Jake on this one. But like, are you getting why it seems like it still feels like, as good as UNC's been this year and getting the final 1 seed, it still feels like there's a bit of a doubt lingering around the program. Do you get it? Like, do you also have that same doubt?
It's a really good point. It's like what I've been saying to my UNC fan friends at school and otherwise. It's like I've seen like the absolute buzzsaw UNC teams, and this doesn't strike me as one of those. Like I'm talking about 2016, 2017,
Yeah.
and then 2009, which I think is like the best UNC team of my lifetime. Just like so. Well, it's obviously not on that level. Yeah, but I think like there is a bit of disrespect out there, I think. And I think it's tied up with the ACC and like recency bias and everything. But when I realized y'all were really scary was the Tennessee game. So I was absolutely assuming that Tennessee would win that game. And I got in trouble with UNC fans on Twitter for like posting all of these like I was honestly bitter after the Duke UNC football game. So I was like, I'm gonna just do something trollish and took all these defensive clips of one of like the Lehigh game. I'm like, what's going on with this team? They can't defend. Then of course you become like a top 10 defense. But yeah, I don't know. It's like those great wins back in November and December and playing UConn and Kentucky tough. And I don't know. I think a lot of it's like you lose a couple games to like Georgia Tech or Syracuse and then State. I think there's a little bit of doubt there, but yeah, a little bit of disrespect I think is out there, which might drive them to be even more fired up, especially after losing in the title game just now.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I remember those clips you posted at the time. Another friend of the show, Trevor Marks, who does Inside Carolina film breakdowns, he was telling me that his theory was basically that those first 3 games against mid-major competition that Hubert was trying out a couple different ball screen defenses and coverages. Like if this is like a total deep dive that only Carolina fans are going to care about, but that's probably 98% of our audience. Like that UC Riverside game, they just trapped every ball screen and blitzed them. Whereas against Lehigh, they were more likely to go under on screens because Lehigh wasn't a good shooting team and they got burned for it. Like I think. So I would guess that was maybe a little bit of just some early season tinkering, but I kind of expect, well, after Atlantis, it's funny because like at the time it was like, wow, 15-point win over Arkansas. This Arkansas team's going to be really good by March. Like Carolina is back. I actually believed in them going to that Tennessee game. I didn't see it unfold the way it did, where they scored I think 61 first half points, and it was just like literal basketball nirvana that did not experience at all last year. And aside from a 4-week stretch in 2022, hadn't experienced since 2019. But yeah, I think you're spot on with the way the ACC, I mean, was just a maligned conference this year. You take some bad losses, which I would honestly say this in Arizona's favor as well. Like sometimes in conference play, other teams just get your number and you slip up, you lose focus. And I don't think it's necessarily an indictment on a team unless it becomes a trend.
Yeah. I have one more question before we move on to the Duke side of the bracket, just because we haven't talked about them at all. And to me, it's with good reason, but like, is Alabama like the least intimidating 4 seed of all time? Because I've never seen such a terrible defensive team like in my life. And I hope that Alabama wins so that UNC can play them, because we will score at will and our defense is so good that we will be able to get stops. And that team, they're going to have to win every game like 102 to 88, 105 to not. Like they literally cannot stop anybody.
Yeah, I think they'll probably get past Charleston. Should be a high scoring game. I kind of like Grand Canyon to beat St. Mary's. St. Mary's they're really injured right now. They only played 6 guys in the West Coast Conference Championship against Gonzaga, and their defense, since they lost their rim protector, Joshua Jefferson, their defense has gone from, I think, 7th in the country to 46, like if you do the T-rank split. And Grand Canyon is, a really good mid-major, can score. They got a guy in Tyon Grant Foster who will probably play at least like a year in the NBA, if I had to guess. He'll get a shot. But yeah, I think there's a decent chance Alabama doesn't make it out of the first weekend.
Oh, yeah. I think there's a decent chance. Like, it's a long shot, but I definitely think they're probably a top 8 to 10 upset pick that people are picking, which is a perfect transition to Duke's side of the bracket. Because I was saying this before we hopped on. I think this region was basically designed for Kentucky or Duke to make it out. I just look at it and I'm like, Houston, they're a little banged up. Juwan Roberts, it just looked real tough in that Big 12 Conference Championship. You've got a 5 seed who is literally the trendiest pick to get upset in the first round. So that bodes well for you. A Marquette team to like, how many minutes can Kolek play before his oblique is basically cooked again? So I look at it and I'm like, dude, who is scaring me? Like, Duke, I understand, hasn't played the greatest basketball in the last couple weeks, but if they figure it out, I mean, we could be potentially looking at Vermont, James Madison, and then a Houston team that isn't at full health. Like, Jake, how are you feeling about your Duke Blue Devils region?
I love your optimism. Houston, I feel like it's like from last year. It's like Tennessee on steroids, like with the toughness. I would feel pretty, despite the injury things you're saying, just like the amount of toughness and physicality there scares me. So I would love for them to lose before any possible Duke game. But no, that's interesting. I mean, yeah, Florida like has looked good, but they're a little banged up. Honestly, like I could honestly see State winning a game or two, which I think would be fun. Yeah, I think like in my heart of hearts, I feel like Duke's most likely wins 1 to 2, hopefully at least one game beats Wisconsin or James Madison. I think Houston, if they get there, I'm not super optimistic about that, but I'm willing to be convinced otherwise. And yeah, I mean, like the thing about our team right now, it's like Caleb Foster's probably not coming back. Like I don't have inside information, but all indications are that he's still quite injured and might have broken his foot or something. In classic Duke fashion, they won't tell us. They don't announce the injuries until like 10 minutes before the game.
But you can bet that if he's on the bench, you'll get your managers to hold up the little towel in front of his face just to keep an extra layer of secrecy.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. But it's nice to hear the optimism. I think I also think Kentucky, like might be fake. I just don't know.
Really?
See,
But I could also see. Yeah, I don't know.
it's so hard because
Yeah.
that's my problem with Duke and Kentucky is that if they both get to playing to their ceilings, it's scary. But it's like, will they? Kentucky's been Jekyll and Hyde all year. Duke just has two problems. And I mean, I think Duke fans would even agree with me on this is that they're soft and Filipowski's not a 5. It's just that simple. Like, and that's the only issue with Duke that I have. I honestly don't really worry about them in the first weekend. What I worry about is even with Houston being injured, Houston has a billion junkyard dogs that are going to beat you up the entire game. And that has been like the MO on how to beat Duke.
Yep.
I want to turn this over to Jake too to get his thoughts because like I don't know if I necessarily agree that they're soft. I just think their defense kind of falls off a cliff whenever Mark Mitchell isn't on the floor. And I know Proctor has had some really nice moments too. I mean, there are times like I think they kept it close in like the rebounding battle in the first game in Chapel Hill. The second game, I think UNC out rebounded them by like 11. I guess you could say that it seems like so my thought process on Duke that first game in Chapel Hill was that Tyrese Proctor played like 25 minutes of really good defense and then just decided he was out. And that was when RJ got going a little bit. The second game, I mean, they came out super flat and got beat up and I don't know. Sometimes it's felt like to me that Filipowski has put up some empty stats. Like he started really turning up when his team gets down, but never enough to get them over the edge. But they're generally speaking a pretty good rebounding team, and their defense is still top 25-ish. I think somewhere in that range on Kimpom. I see why some of the soft allegations have been thrown out, just because there have been games where they've been punched in the mouth and they crumbled, or that they sort of folded down the stretch and really, yeah, that last Carolina game where they could get it close and could never get over the hump and would make a stupid mistake and let UNC get a run out from like Seth Trimble to Cormac Ryan. But yeah, where are you at with some of this team's issues, Jake? And do you think they're fixable? Like, I know you made the joke about it's football season in Duke fans' minds.
No. No, it's what I'm focusing on right now is just we're missing Caleb Foster. That's like what's forefront of my mind. I think like he doesn't get enough love for what he does. That's sort of some of the intangibles. I mean, he's also I think he's been quite clutch in big moments like the Michigan State. He basically won us that Michigan State game. That was a very important win for us to not be 1-2 after losing to Arizona. And even like where everyone else looked like absolute ass at Georgia Tech, like he scored like 12 straight points or something. And he brings the ball up a lot, and he's very steady, not a lot of turnovers, pretty good shooter. So basically what I'm saying is like our guard depth, like when it was a 4-headed monster with Foster, I felt like there was enough margin because we have really good guards. We're a really great 3-point shooting team. But without him out there, I feel like Proctor, McCain, and Roach have been playing like 35 to 40 minutes. And then, as you say, yeah, like I don't know about the softness. It's also like it's like the eye test. I would say, yeah, it's like we're not like as tough as we would like to be, but I think also like lacking a rim protector, so Flip can kind of cook and be more flexible. Is just tough, but I don't know. Like Sean Stewart showed a lot of good signs against State in the regular season game. So people get really hyped. Duke Twitter goes absolutely crazy when Sean Stewart does well. So I think there's a path there, and I could see us bring it together. And we do have Jeremy Roach, who is like Mr. March for us.
Right.
So you need that too.
Yeah, and I think like honestly, why I'm not gonna the meme about I showed up to my biggest hater's funeral just to make sure they were dead. I'm not going to do that until Duke, even if they get scared by Vermont in the first round, I'm not going to celebrate until it's over, because I still think like in my mind, the identity of this Duke team is, well, I said like Flip as the playmaking hub in the half court, and then getting out on the break and letting McCain and Roach bomb threes, because those are the moments where they really things start to spiral positively in Duke's direction, when I guess they show the spurt ability, if you want to use like a cliche basketball term. Like Roach hits one, then McCain hits one. Like I think about that the NC State game in PNC, where I think State had cut the lead to 7. Roach comes down the court, hits a 3 to bump it back up to 10. McCain comes down the court, hits a 3, draws a foul, puts him up 14, and the game is over. And I know it looks like McCain's shooting has slipped a little bit down the stretch. Like he is 5 for his last 20 over the past 4 games. Maybe that's slightly concerning, but I mean, the dude is still a 40% 3-point shooter. He is someone who I think is an absolute dog. I know he's not the best defender, but he at least gets after it on the glass. And he strikes me as someone who's going to rise to the moment. I mean, you look like he beat Sarah Canyon and Bronny James's team in high school for the whatever California state championship that was. He has a history of showing up in big moments. So from a Carolina fan's perspective, that's what scares me about this Duke team is no one is talking about them. They are licking their wounds after 2 straight losses. Like, when's the last time that Duke lost in the first round of the ACC tournament? Like 2012 or something? 11?
I think it was, maybe like over 10 years ago for sure.
Yeah.
It's very strange.
So I don't know. I'm not ready to be like this Duke team is terrible and they're cooked just yet.
Well, yeah, that's what I think. That's a stupid thing to say. Like, I think that's probably the issue. You know, it's just like any other groups in the world, right? There's going to be extremists on both sides. And I think that's the problem with the UNC extremist and the Duke extremist is that they have zero logic in their basketball takes and they just say shit that doesn't really make sense. Like, that's just based out of pure hatred. Like, I hate Duke. I went to UNC. I'm also not an idiot to be like, this team's terrible. No shot in hell they're winning the tournament game. Like, no. Like, they have a dude who Riley and I have praised over and over again on this podcast in Jared McCain that is an absolute bucket and has shown up in every big game. Like, Filipowski, you know, he's done some questionable things this year off and on the court for sure, but he's still a bucket getter. Like you said, Jeremy Roach is Mr. March. I mean, they're still a good team. And that's, you know, I just think it's ridiculous to just hop on a social media app, or if you have a podcast, hop on a mic and just be like, yeah, man, this team's cooked. Like, no, they're not cooked. Like it's an absolutely insane thing to say. But yeah, I mean, I think this region is wide open. I really do.
Yeah, the last thing I want. Oh, go ahead, Jake. Yeah.
Well, I just want to say, like, the good thing about this region is UNC is not in it for us, right? Like that.
Yeah.
And you know, the matchup with UNC just was so. After the first game, I'm like, our roster just doesn't. We're not built to beat this roster. It's just not. It didn't work, and it's like, if we don't have to play a team like maybe we won't play a team exactly like y'all, but like we don't have to play y'all. I feel like we can contend with most other teams, including like the Arizonas of the world, and we beat Baylor, which is our best win of the year. Baylor's quite good, so I think like we're up there, like top 15, 20 team. I just wonder about like the toughness and some of the injuries because I think several guys are it seems like several guys are playing injured too. Which is part of why I'm pessimistic, but we got some talent, and I agree. Jared McCain could get extremely hot and do something crazy in March because he's just that kind of guy.
I was also relieved at y'all's region because swear it always feels like when UNC's have won, you might as well just go ahead and bet money that Kentucky's in that bracket. And thank God they're not. Thank God they put them with Duke this time.
That's the last team I wanted to talk about. Also, I got to get my Jared McCain draft propaganda out there just because I've been pumping it because I want nothing to do with a sophomore season of Jared McCain in Durham, but also because I believe it. I think he can be. I know he's shorter than Tyler Hero, but I think he can be a hero type player in the league who develops more like on ball skills once he gets to the league, and he's pretty much gonna have to run some point, I think, to ever get starter minutes or like big time minutes in the league. But I would bet on the kid. Anyway, let's talk some about Kentucky because again, I think both of our fan bases will probably unite in hating Kentucky. I don't really hate Kentucky. Maybe that's a hot take. I usually enjoy watching their teams. They have exciting guards. I kind of think John Calipari is hilarious. I asked him when I covered the NCAA tournament, the first round in Greensboro last year, and Kentucky played Providence in the first round. And I asked Cal a question about Oscar Sheboy. Wait, was Sheboy still there last year? Am I getting my years mixed up?
He was
Sheboy
there.
No,
came back,
last year
didn't he?
was the year that Shebo was there. They lost to Kansas State.
Okay. Why do I feel, man, it's crazy how quickly a year goes by. Because I'm like, I could have sworn Sheboy was gone by that point, but no, y'all are both right. He was there. So anyway, it was a question about Oscar Sheboy because I want to say he had over 20 rebounds that game. And Cal looked me right in the eye, and I felt like he was speaking into my soul. And I'm like, this is how this dude is such a good recruiter. He's making me feel like I've known him for years. That's part of why I think he's just like a hilarious character in the sport. Kentucky's one of the most fascinating teams in the entire bracket. Obviously, we know how good their offense is. Rob Dillingham might be my favorite player to watch in the country. I think he's going to have a game where he just cooks. I hope we get a Rob Dillingham 40 burger. But Jacob, you teased it when you said you don't know what to do with this team. Y'all can both weigh in on this. How far do y'all have Kentucky going in your brackets?
I'm going to keep it 100% honest with you. I've only made 3 brackets so far because I like to wait until the first 4 is over because I do think those games are very matchup dependent. Like I like Colorado a lot more than I like Boise State because Colorado has 3 pros on their roster. So I'm going to wait, but I have dabbled in a few. And in 2 out of my 3 brackets, I do have Kentucky in the Final Four because I'm telling you, this team is either going to the Final Four or like not making it out of the first weekend.
Yeah.
They are on paper without question. And this has probably been the case like half of the last 12 years for Kentucky, but they're the most talented team in the country. Now, they have a lot of stuff to figure out, but like, dude, I don't know. Antonio Reeves has been spectacular this year. Reed and Rob are just absolutely ridiculous. If they can just remotely guard, they don't have to be great. If they can hold teams to like 77 points per game, I think they can make an insane run. And they got to figure out the front court stuff because Big Z is like kind of figuring it out a little bit down the stretch, but he's still a bad defender. And then it's like on Yenso provides 0 offense. Like I don't know what they're going to do with their front court outside of Trey Mitchell, but I don't know, man. This is like arguably the most polarizing team I can remember being in the tournament in a long time.
Yep. Jake, how far do you have Kentucky going?
Now that sports betting is legal in North Carolina, in case you guys haven't heard, I put like $20 on them going to the Final Four like instantly.
I'm telling you, it's such a good look.
I don't know if they will, but it seems like such a reasonable likelihood. And yeah, I mean, it's like with the defense, they held Auburn to 59 on the road, and I think that people were like, "Oh, we're back," and and they did enough to beat Tennessee on the road. I didn't watch the Texas A&M game really, but I feel like if they Reeves is a veteran, you need good guards in March. Good offense beats good defense. I feel like they could really do it, and Cal has been there before, so I like them. I think they could come out of this. If they play Houston, I think they could beat Houston.
I also just they got to be a shoe-in for the second weekend, right? Because Oakland is a fast-paced 3-point shooting team. They are going to dog walk Oakland. And then it's like, bro, I'm sorry, but Texas Tech or NC State versus this team, they can't score enough.
They beat NC State by 20. I feel very confident about that.
They would kill NC State.
They would destroy them. I think Rob Dillingham would be like, "Oh, the school I committed to, home state team, it's time to cook." I think that they'll get past Oakland because it's anytime you see those mid-major teams that try to play the same style as the high majors, it usually results in a loss. Like if you run with this Kentucky team and you don't have the horses to keep up, you're probably going to lose. I agree with you. I think they blitz either Texas Tech or NC State. I really like Texas Tech's backcourt. I like Darian Williams as well, who is sort of a swing forward for them. I think he primarily plays the floor. Maybe he plays some 3. But good athlete, good shooter. But yeah, they don't have enough firepower. That defense is not the Texas Tech defenses that we've grown accustomed to. And yeah, I think they handle Marquette or Florida.
I think they do too. I don't think they're a good matchup for Marquette at all.
Yeah, especially with a banged up Kolek. Who knows if Kolek hasn't played in a month.
Dude, Dude,
And
people are swearing like he's healthy. We
he
don't
might just
know.
not be coming
Just because
back.
he's going to suit
Yeah.
up doesn't mean he's healthy.
Hmm. Now I'm talking myself into picking Western Kentucky over Marquette as I look at this bracket. I need to pick some
The
high seed going down.
Hilltoppers.
Let's go Hilltoppers. I think the Hilltoppers play pretty fast and bomb a lot of threes if I'm not mistaken. Um, but
Don't
yeah,
even get me started because we know a 15 is going to beat a 2, but which one?
yep. That's why I think I think Marquette's the most susceptible. I'll go ahead and get there. I too have Kentucky in the Final Four. So we're all banking on that. And that will transition very nicely into our four corners. This is a segment that we end every show with. We give a category that usually involves making four choices of something. Of course, we got to say our final four, and then I have a bonus one after this. So, JK, let me hear your final four. You can, and I don't want to hear any of this multiple bracket tomfoolery.
No.
Lock in one final four.
I'll lock in the Final Four that I feel most confident about, and that is UConn for obvious reasons. UNC, I think they edge out Arizona. Kentucky and Purdue. So obviously that's a 1-1-1-3. The chances of that actually happening are slim to none. But I do think that this year, although there will obviously be upsets in the first weekend, I think I agree with my guy Robbie Hummel here in that I do think the cream of the crop this year is a little too good.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
I largely agree with you. I have three of the four same teams. I have UConn, I have UNC, I have Kentucky. And as I said earlier, give me the Vols. Give me Rick Barnes making his second Final Four, getting over the hump. That defense is going to travel. Dalton Connect is a bucket. Man is a problem. He's pretty much unguardable. And they already lost to Purdue in a close game. I think Tennessee wins round 2 of that.
Yeah.
Jake, let's hear yours.
Yeah, I got UConn for sure. Unfortunately, they're my champion too. It's
They're
just
so good.
It seems inevitable. And when they win, if and when they win 6, they're going to absolutely wreck Duke fans because they hate us right now because of Cooper Flag. Even though they're on top. Anyway, Arizona. I think I just for the narrative, I think I'm hoping for a Caleb Love game winner. Kentucky. And then I don't believe in Purdue, so yeah, I put Tennessee. I don't believe in Purdue at all.
I do think Purdue's in a tough spot. I think Tennessee or Creighton, realistically, if Kalkbrenner stays out of foul trouble because Creighton has no depth, they could beat them. And then Tennessee just I don't know, man. I think it gets to a point where we get into the tournament and they let guys play a little more physical, and all of a sudden Edey's not taking 37 free throws a game, and then it gets a little harder.
I see where you're coming from for sure. I was wanting to give somebody a dark horse, maybe Illinois, but they've been so erratic. Iowa State's not really a dark horse because they're a 2 seed, but they're certainly good enough to make it because I feel like our brackets were kind of chalky.
Does Auburn count? Because I think if one team will beat UConn on the way to the Final Four, it would be Auburn.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see a world where that happens. I don't hate Gonzaga's draw. I think they're way better than McNeese, and no one wants to. Everybody's just looking at McNeese, their 30 wins, and ignoring the fact that I think they played like 5 D2 teams this year, NAIA teams.
They played 5 schools with like religions in their name. That's how you know. That's how you know it's bad.
Right. But I don't really believe in the talent of this Gonzaga team. Graham Ike's been good, but he can be exposed in the right matchup. Ryan Nimhard's been streaky. I don't know. Maybe like the calendar turns to March and Mark Few's made a couple deep runs, so maybe they're able to topple Purdue. I know they only lost to them by 10 in Maui, so I mean they were down.
I kind of have an extreme one.
Let me hear it.
Listen, man. Don't fall asleep on the Fighting Richard Pitinos. Because I think New Mexico is so severely underseeded, it's actually insane.
I mean, they definitely meet the guard criteria of dudes who could just get hot for
exactly. And I think they're going to take it personally, bro. They just won the conference tournament of a really tough league, and they're favored to beat a 6 seed. Why are they in 11 if they're favored to beat a 6 seed? God, it makes no sense. But That's like my super, super long shot. Other than that, I mean, dude, I mean, maybe another decent long shot could be BYU just because like they're such a 3-point variance team.
Yeah, BYU is a good long shot as well. Their offense is insane. They kind of strike me as like the Linsanity run team though, that
Yep.
has crazy
Mhm.
offense for a game or two, and then the luck runs out. But okay, second four corners. I tease this as a bonus. I just want to get Jake. You've lived in Chapel Hill now, going on 2 years. Give me your top four restaurants in Chapel Hill. We love asking anybody who's local to Chapel Hill this when we have them on the pod.
Oh, for sure. Well, RIP number one, Linda's.
Oh,
That which
elite.
which maybe it's not like fully gone. I think it's like, maybe you guys have an update on that, but I'm
Yeah,
hoping Linda's revives. Um, like a nice restaurant. I love Lantern, which is
Lantern smacks. Lanterns is
super
incredible.
good, super good. Just my family, we love going to Carolina Brewery. That's another good one. And I did actually at the recommendation of Neil go to Four Corners.
Mm.
Like for the first time, I watched the UNC beat Syracuse by like 1,000 points. Yeah.
Yeah,
Four
I would say
Corners has the deals too.
yeah, they do. Four Corners and Carolina Brewery are both incredible places to watch a game. I like those inclusions. One recent one that I went to actually last night that I hadn't been to since I was a student, Lucha Tigre. Very slept on. It's
It
down
is good.
MLK if anybody hasn't been there. But yes, if they happen to hear this, I think that they tweeted out or they posted something on Instagram when Inside Carolina gave them a shout out. Lucha Tigre, sponsor the pod. Give us some free Asian and Latin fusion
It's
cuisine. We would
such a
love
good
that.
combo.
It really is.
Also, so all right, one more food question. Assuming you've been to both, do you prefer Buns or Al's Burger Shack?
I haven't been to Buns.
Oh, it's so good.
Buns is really good.
It's I think
Highly
it's better than
recommend.
Al's, can't lie.
I like that. I like Al's. Where is Buns like in the main? Is it like on Franklin Street or is it out of the way?
What
Kind
road
of.
is?
It's like right when you're coming up the hill on MLK. It's right there on your right, like before you get to the main corner. And I'm telling you, whoever owns that place, I said this when we had Neil on, funny enough, because he was talking about how he likes it better than Al's. Whoever owns that place used to work at Five Guys because their fries are a carbon copy of Five Guys. They give them to you in the same brown paper bag. They taste the same. They're cut the same, same color. Buns is when I was living there, it definitely put a dent in my pocket because it was just so easy to walk right there
Uh-huh.
and just walk back.
Yeah, it's right next to that place that's like, I guess it would be like at the same intersection where Topo is, across like diagonally across from Topo, across from the Raising Canes. That
Hmm.
place that has been unoccupied for like years now. But yeah, Buns is like right next to it. But it was a Cadoba when I was a student and then just disappeared forever. But anyway, keep tuning into the Pot as a Roof for basketball analysis and Chapel Hill food takes. We're looking forward to this tournament starting. By the time you're listening to it, there's a good chance that it's already tipped off. And I'll go ahead and say it. Hopefully, by the time this graces your ear drums, if you're listening later in the day, that UNC will have already triumphed over Wagner, and we're moving on. So I'm Riley Davis on behalf of Jacob Karabatsos and our guest Jake Stanley. We'll talk to you soon.